Welcome back, everybody. It's another episode of Important Work. I'm your host, as always, Chris Angel, and I'm here with my guest today, Sharon Holand Gelfand. Did I say it right?
You did. Thank you.
Hey, I love it. Sharon, I met you a week ago, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
At Connect, Master Network's annual conference called Connect, and you did this amazing breakout session on gut health. And I had to interview you for this show because I feel like health is a very important factor in life, period, but also I think for those of us that really want to be doing important work in the world, like it's easy to get sidetracked with the passion projects and forget about our health in the process of building important work. So I want you to teach us what you know. What is the gut method?
Oh my God. Wow. Where do I start? Well, first, thank you so much for having me. And it was so great meeting you last weekend. That's what I love about networking and just getting to know people, right? It's just amazing the energy that you can just find just by talking to others and putting yourself out there. But the gut method. So I'm going to just back up before I even talk about that, because what's important that I would love for your audience to know is that I was one of these, I'm a New Yorker. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but I was, years ago, I wasn't always that nice New Yorker. I was like your typical New Yorker.
Okay.
But I was in banking and finance. I had a business with my former husband, and I have 3 young adults, and one of my kids was diagnosed with Crohn's. And I knew nothing about health. And to me, something healthy was a cup of coffee and a bran muffin from Dunkin' Donuts, iceberg lettuce. That was healthy.
Wow.
And I didn't have time. And like you're saying, we're so busy with our passion and things that we're doing that I wasn't paying attention to anything, let alone my own health. But it took my son's diagnosis to be my blessing in disguise and wake me up, because, as I said, I knew nothing. And within the first week, he was getting worse. And he was complaining to me that it was the medicine. And the doctor said, no, it's the disease. And now what I'm going to share has nothing to do, I don't want people to think I'm bashing doctors. I think they save lives and they're so important in healthcare.
Yeah.
But what's equally as important is paying attention to you. And my son was so insistent. He was 11 and a half years old, and he was insistent that it was the medicine. And I heard this voice saying, why aren't you listening to your son? You're listening to this expert, but he knows his body, and he was right. So it created this whole crack in my belief system, led me down a whole journey to grad school and nutrition and being certified as a functional nutritionist, to creating this gut method, GUT, because what I realized along the way was that we're inundated with so much noise on a daily basis. With commercials telling us that we might need a certain pill because if we exhibit these symptoms, hey, chances are you have it. And when you listen to these commercials, the music makes you feel so good, right? And everybody's smiling.
Yeah, they're so happy. Of course
they're so happy, right? The butterflies are flying across the screen. And then they mumble all the side effects, possible stroke and death. Right. And you're like, wait, what?
Right, what? So, that was really,
Exactly. But again, all that noise is so repetitive in our minds. And it just made me realize that we're so disconnected. We're disconnected from our bodies because we're just so busy doing and taking care of, men and women alike. I mean, we have different ways of handling it, but we're just out there and we're not tuning in. So the gut method was created by working with my clients and realizing that we need to get connected to our symptoms, to our body, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to our relationships, to that, what's going on. And then the U is understanding that connection so that you can start to create your own little roadmap, your own little GPS, and understand the connection between the conscious and the unconscious so that you can then take action, trust yourself, and transform your life. And it's not even nutrition, it's health. It's all the different aspects.
Yeah.
Because you could eat as healthy as you want, but if you're not minding your mind, if you're not doing things to reduce stress, if you're not in a loving relationship or in a supportive community, something's falling apart that's affecting your health and your gut.
Wow.
Whew. Okay.
Wow, good job. You did it. You did it. That's great. That's a wrap, everybody.
Okay. We can go home now.
We can go home now. Recap the GUT for me. So G is
G is get connected to your symptoms and what's going on in your body, emotionally, physically, spiritually.
Got it.
U, understanding that connection and understanding the gap between the conscious and the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
T is taking action so that you can trust yourself and transform your life.
Got it. So where does, I love that, by the way. And I love that it's not just a physical conversation, that there's a bigger conversation happening. And I think you and I had this conversation last week, but so many people are looking outside of themselves for answers, just like that commercial. And we see the butterflies, or we don't trust ourselves enough and we don't know how to hear ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what you mean by, the unconscious or subconscious, but.
That's exactly what I mean. Because you're right. We've forgotten how to trust. And, the gut intuition, the listen to your gut, it's real because we experience that little visceral response, but we ignore it because we don't know what it means. We don't know what it means to us. So we're looking externally for the relief.
Right. So how do we start to, in your experience, because you had your own journey of this, of how you started to get connected. How do you, and I'm sure you've helped others do the same thing. Like is there a common thread for how people can start to get connected? Where do we start?
So that's a great question. And I'll share a little bit about my own journey with helping my son, because I was one of those people that thought I was healthy. Mm-hmm. And yet I had eczema. I had dry skin, which was, all right, that's normal. You get dry skin. I had IBS. Okay, you take antacids. Mm-hmm. I was getting strep throat or sinus infections or infections in my eyes. Like, it happens. I was anemic. It's like, all right, like all these things that my doctors, my specialist was saying, you're fine, just take this pill. Mm. And I had hypoglycemia. So I thought I was healthy because I've been compartmentalizing. So for me, it was taking a journal literally and just writing things down of what was going on physically to start with. And then asking myself, if I have all these symptoms, why did I believe I was healthy? Like, where'd that thought come from? Right?
Right. Yeah.
Because I really did. I honestly, I can't even imagine where I'd be if my son wasn't diagnosed.
Wow. Yeah. Right.
You just don't know what you don't know. And it's so interesting. I have to ask you, did you go to the breakout, at the keynote where Chris, the Kung Fu guy, the black belt guy, talked about the 4 levels of consciousness?
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And it's so key to this because the 4 levels, right? They're unconscious incompetence. We don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
Then there's the conscious incompetence. Now we're aware that we don't know. So I wasn't aware. Then I became aware, started to write it down. Then it was unconscious. Then it was conscious competence. Because then I was like, okay, where do I start? Where do I start with all of this? And because I had IBS was my big thing, it was, what am I eating? How can I make a direct connection? Mm-hmm. And writing it down and then realizing, wow, you know what? Dairy kills my stomach. Why am I doing this to myself? Now I have a choice.
Yeah.
So now that I'm consciously aware of it, I can do something about it if I choose to. We all have a choice, right? Yeah. And then when you create that habit long enough and realize, you know what, I don't miss it anymore, then it becomes unconsciously competent because now it's a new habit.
Right.
Right. So it's breaking it down into picking one thing and just realizing, for some people it's tomatoes, eggplant, nightshade vegetables. For me, it was dairy. It could be something else for different people. So whatever that is, and I always started with food because it's the easiest place to start. Yeah. Because the immediate symptoms of the gas, the bloating, the constipation, whatever it is, was so recognizable.
I feel like what comes up for me as you're describing that is in this day and age where we can go see a doctor and get a prescription like today, that is drastically different in my mind than moving up the levels of competency from I don't know to now I know I don't know. And the time it takes to document and journal and observe and track, like you may not get a diagnosis today doing it this way, but I also feel like you get maybe more of a sense of control and an understanding about why you're doing what you're doing instead of just abdicating responsibility for how you feel.
Absolutely. And a lot of it is emotional. when we eat, our habits, it could be from a childhood experience. So it's connecting
Yeah.
those dots also.
Wow. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. But what's interesting is that, especially with technology and social media, we're such an instant gratification society.
Right.
And sometimes we don't want to do the work because we feel like it's so much work. But, and then we get diagnosed with something. It's like, I don't understand how that happened.
Right.
It's because we don't have time. But, and as I talked about what last weekend, we're our biggest assets. If we don't put the oxygen masks on ourselves first,
right,
how can we fully show up in any area of our life, work, relationships, our kids?
Yeah.
How can we give the space where we become like a vacuum of sucking and being sucked up from all this energy?
Right. Yeah. Right. Walk me through, help me understand the connection then to, what you call it, like guidance or the universe or, your unconscious, subconscious, like there's a lot of different names for it, but walk me through how people start connecting to that, like the intuition and the promptings.
So, well, do you want us to we could do a little exercise of that with food, or we could do it with like a relationship or something?
Let's do it with both. Like, let's hit food. We've talked about food. So let's finish there. Like, let's pick it up there, and then we can kind of transition it into something not food.
Okay, perfect. So, somebody who is feeling tired all the time and they have no energy and they have brain fog and they're addicted, like they feel like they have to have cookies every day, or they feel like they have to have soda or some sort of sugar. And they find out, they go to the doctor, your blood sugar is high. You know what? You need to take metformin because we need to control your blood sugar. So first reaction can be, all right, well, I'm going to do it because I trust you and I'm not going to do anything about it. Second reaction could be, wait a second, how did this happen? Can I do something about it? Right. So again, so we go back to the journaling part, the getting connected, and then it's really sitting with it's actually taking time. And actually, let's back up. It's taking time in the morning, even when you wake up, give yourself 5 minutes where you're just closing your eyes and doing a body scan of what you're feeling. That allows you right before the pressures of the day start to say, okay, what's aching, what's not aching, and what do I need to pay attention to? Because when you start to look at it that way, what do I need to pay attention to? That's when the universe starts sending you signs physically, right? So if you start noticing, I have a craving for sugar. Are you really craving sugar, or is there something else going on? Is whatever word you want to choose, the universe, anything bigger. What signal is it telling me? What do I need to pay attention to? What's missing? Am I missing a nutrient? Am I missing a craving for love? Why? Right? So it can be so much bigger, but you just have to start somewhere. And usually it's the physical aspect.
Yeah. I love the question. I love that there's a question, like, what am I missing? Because it's almost if you're not used to talking to yourself or talking to God, then it feels weird. But like, if you are used to inquiring, that I love that it opens up a dialogue or an inquiry of like noticing, like, what am I missing? And then you're just waiting sort of for an answer or an intuition or a something.
Right.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because even with the word God, people start thinking, okay, wait, I'm not into religion. And it's not about religion, right? It's about whatever your connection is to some greater something. And that's the beauty, is that because we all come from different backgrounds, it's the universal language of there's something that's greater. And do I want to expand?
Yeah.
Do I want to be bigger than myself and look for a different solution? Because dieting, right? You do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It doesn't work. Yeah. So then it's okay. Why am I doing this? Why do I keep thinking it's going to be different? Why am I buying into it? What can I do? And that's when it's like listening to yourself. And sometimes we're like, oh, wait, but I'm talking to myself. Well, and you are, but that voice has that inner guidance.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Have you ever done active imagination? Do you know active imagination?
I don't. I'm fascinated though. Please share.
It was I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show before, but it was a Carl Jung thing. And it was basically did you ever read Conversations with God?
Oh yeah.
From Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes.
So that type of dialogue is like active imagination. And so you basically can have a written dialogue with yourself, your higher self, with God, with whoever, your gut. You could have a conversation, and I love doing it because it is, you can tell when truth comes through. Truth has a very unique like way it sounds. It's not
and feels.
And feels. Yeah. Yeah. It's not verbose. It's very direct, short words, but you could tell. I can see like, as an exercise for people getting acquainted with this dialogue with themselves or whoever they're talking to, can be like, what am I missing a nutrient, for example, and waiting. And then my experience of it has been something will come through, like stop drinking coffee or like something will reveal itself.
Right.
Not audibly for me, but just like a sense,
Do you listen to shows like this and think, I could totally do that? You have a longing to connect more genuinely with your community and have a platform where you can play a bigger game. But you never start because either the tech's overwhelming or you don't want more work on your plate, or maybe you're not exactly sure what you would say. Yet you know you have really important things to share. This is why we created a done-for-you content marketing service, helping you give life to the conversations in your head to grow your business and your impact. Learn more at mygroundswell.com.
And you hit on such a good point there in terms of the sense, because when we're in this like stressed, anxious mode because of what we can't control, but we're trying to control, when you are able to sit and ask those questions and be guided, and that truth enters you, it feels calm.
Yes.
It feels right. When it doesn't, there is a reaction. There's like a tightening. There's something that happens physically that makes you think, is that the right thing? And sometimes we hesitate for that split second. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I'm just going to ignore it. And then something else happens. So I have to give you actually a great example about this. Last summer, I was leaving Manhattan. I was making a left turn onto 57th Street to go visit friends in New Jersey. And I get pulled over by a cop. And I'm thinking, I just turned, like, what did I do? And he said, ma'am, did you see the pedestrian crossing the street? And I said, no, she was on the sidewalk. No, ma'am, she was in the street. So I wasn't going to argue with the officer. But what's interesting is just before I turned, I saw the woman and my gut instinct was wait for her to cross. But I went thinking I have enough time. What I found out was that they've changed the laws in New York and you're not allowed, like if you see that she was still on the sidewalk, he begs to differ otherwise, but it's just my gut instinct was to wait and I didn't. And those are the things, right? And when you start paying attention, it's like, Yeah. So it requires us to slow down. And I think that's what's missing is that we don't allow ourselves the space to be quiet.
I love I love the idea of food as an inroad to this intuition because like you said, I think it's easy to relate to, it's easy to see and track and whatnot. But I love that on the other side of that, like you said, I love that story because I think our gut, our intuition, it knows more than we consciously know. Like that the laws have changed or like that things are different. Like there's a thing that happens where we're connected to a higher consciousness that just knows what's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah. I actually had a couple of incidences where I did listen to my gut and I so believe that if I hadn't, I would have been in an accident for two specific times. And it's really, it's amazing that force that we had when we were young, but that society kind of took away from us because we had to be the good model citizen, the good whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's an interesting, I'm curious on this side of not only what you've learned, but in practicing this type of connection, just living life this connected like this. Does it come faster? Is it louder? Like, are you tuned into your intuition? And so like you're getting direct downloads? Like, what's it like on this side of that journey?
Wow. Interesting. The way you phrase it is so like, I've never really thought of it that way, that question, but there are times when it's loud and clear. Mm-hmm. And then there are other times that it's not, because of all the noise that I'm allowing in, right? So it's a practice that you just have to be aware of. And it has gotten easier, certainly from the beginning of when I started, because I had to shift. I had to practice, right? You don't get great in an instrument or sports or anything without the awareness and the practice. So I find that when I don't, I'll get a clear sign, and my clear sign will be like, I won't sleep all night because my mind is racing with all these things that I didn't allow in. And then I'll wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, I just have to grab my pen and paper and like start writing things down. Yeah. But it's not always that it comes faster. It's just clearer. It's just a lot clearer. And it's just kind of like, gotcha. Got it. Yeah. And it does feel like a direct download. It definitely does, because it's, when you feel that, it's just like this calm and ease and space gets created, and you realize like, it's good. It's good. Oh. So you try to remember that so that you can keep feeling it. Right.
I feel something just popped as you were saying that for me. And it was, I think sometimes we may want to feel better. We may be present to what doesn't feel good. But then thinking about giving things up, giving up coffee, giving up sugar, giving up things feels like I'm depriving myself. And so I'm not sure I want to sign up for that. But as you were just talking, I started to feel into, when we have important work, the importance of being clear and having clear downloads, the importance of intuition in making big business decisions or negotiating big contracts, partnering with the right people in business. All of that is connected to your gut. Like, your ability to effectively make an impact in the world is going to come back to how clearly you can see from where you sit right now. And if you can't see clearly, like, the thing you've dedicated your life to is hindered. Like, it's not in its full capacity. So it's absurd that we'd spend all of our time and energy to build important work in the world, and yet have this little child voice in the background, like, I don't want to give up sugar. I don't want to give up sugar, right? We're so attached to the thing we'd have to give up that we can't see that it's affecting the impact we want to make in the world.
Right. So a couple of things. That's such an amazing, it's a great point of view, and it's such an amazing point to bring up, because you're right. And especially with the good work and wanting to impact the world so many times, and science is showing and revealing this now, that, the guts is your second brain. It has its own world, and it's connected to your brain by the vagus nerve, which is like the superconductor highway. Yeah. So what people don't realize is that, even like serotonin, which is the happy, feel good hormone that's made in your gut, if your gut is going haywire, it's not able to feel good, produce this. Serotonin is the precursor for melatonin, which helps you sleep. So everything has this ripple effect, and the brain then is not getting the right nutrients. So it could mean, it could cost your company a lot of money if you're not able to think clearly, to be able to tune in to it, because it's like you're out there, and that connection is so critical, and mental health is so critical as a result of all of that. Right. Totally. So it's fascinating, because as science is now, the studies are really just emerging, showing that so much focus is now coming to the sugar cravings, which is now likened to cocaine. Yet, and this is so important, what you said about the deprivation and feeling like, don't take it away from me. Yeah. Is you can shift your perspective, and like during the week, when you know that you have to have those business decisions, and you've got those meetings, and you've got multi-million-dollar contracts, whatever's happening, focus on the right foods, because also when if you're eating the wrong foods, it's so busy trying to digest that it's taking the energy away from your brain.
Yeah.
But then on the weekends, you know, and I don't believe in deprivation. I don't believe in you can't have, unless you know specifically, like for me, dairy, I just, right?
Right.
But if you know your body well enough, and especially as people advance and like they want to do testing with me or any other practitioner who does specific gut testing to map out what's going on, and you feel like having real ice cream, or you want to have a piece of dessert, you want to savor, you want to indulge, you want to enjoy, because that's part of life too. We don't live in the woods. We're not eating, you know, bamboo shoots and leaves and,
right.
you know, living in a cave. So it's finding that right balance for you, which is why diets don't work.
Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Well, I could keep talking to you.
I
think
know.
it's first of all, it's just such a fascinating topic. And then I think when I start to apply it to the things that I'm up to in the world, it hits home even more. Let me ask I want to phase out with this a small set of questions around important work. So, I mean, we've talked about your important work. And I think whenever somebody engages in their important work, like life teaches you something. You had your own levels of consciousness, right? In this work, and what it takes to not only learn the work, but deliver the work, have people receive the work. So for those listening who are in the beginning stages of finding their important work, like you found yours, like what advice, based on what you've learned from the process of taking on this new thing in life, like what advice do you have for other people who are kind of starting this journey?
Oh, wow. So I always say because I say this even to my clients who are like going through transition, you know, take a piece of paper and write down things that you love to do in your prior jobs, in life, you know, where you've always felt happy doing them, right? And because part of that feeling good, doing great work is being attracted to and calling upon those skills that you really enjoy doing. Like I was great in math, but I was in banking. I hated it. Right?
Yeah.
So, all right, I was great at it, didn't like it, but I liked the people part of it. So, you know, I wrote that down. Writing that down and looking back to even your childhood of what made me happy. Because that's how you can start to create and weave your web of, now what can I do with this and my skills that makes me marketable for me in my business or with others? What can I do to take it to the next level? And being open to who comes across your path, like you and I meeting last weekend.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and just being aware and connecting. And when you start talking to people and asking questions, and listen, we have 2 ears, and I know you listen, everybody listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen and be present, right, before you respond, and engage in conversations and be curious about other people. Like you and I know that connection, that rapport, that the relationship building is about being interested in the other person. And when you could do that and feel like, wow, I've helped that person because I happen to be good at XYZ, that creates a bigger vision of possibilities. Of what you could do in the world, because we all have a purpose, and it's sometimes it's the fear of the success that comes along with it that scares everybody.
Yeah, I hear you. I would end with these two observations of that. One is that when you clear up your food, or you start to clear up your gut, I think finding that important work and hearing the promptings of where you're supposed to go with that important work is a lot easier.
Yes.
I'm not saying that from a place of mastering it. I am saying it from a place of, though, when I've been clear, that direction comes a lot easier. And then I think you guys could go back and listen to this again from not just the nutritional side of it, but go back and listen to when Sharon talked about GUT, and what those stood for, right? Go back and listen from a place of important work, and what is your important work? Because it's the same thing. Get connected, understand, transform. Like it's the same process as you engage your important work as it is when you engage your body, et cetera. So
Love
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Perfect way to end. Love it. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Sharon. I know you have a book. So you have a book coming out. Do you know when it's coming out?
Goal is the end of summer, beginning of fall. And for people who want to stay connected, you can go to my website, SharonHoland.com. You can sign up for my free guide for breaking free from cravings, diets, and deprivation. And definitely follow me on Instagram, Sharon Holand Gelfand. That's where I am mostly present. And I'd love to connect with everybody.
I love it. Thanks, Sharon. And your book is called The Gut Method, and that'll be out late summer.
I'm not sure it's going to be called that, but it's going to be about that.
Got it.
We'll have to see what they say.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. I mean, they always have something to say. So
exactly.
Well, good stuff. Sharon, thanks again for being on the show. I wish you all the best. And until I see you again, take care.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Do you have important work in the world? We can help you produce a show just like this one and get your message out in the world. Go to mygroundswell.com to connect with us now.